the football game. He ran the missed field goal back. He ran it back 109 yards. They're not going to keep him off the field tonight. Holy cow.
Little roller up along first. Behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight and the Mets win it.
In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened.
5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Hey DJ, what's going on? I'm Chandler, and this is Tiger With Sports.
Welcome to a special edition of this all-crazy sports newscast.
Hey everybody, I'm Chandler With Sports, and this is the Sport Report.
Chandler With Sports is how he wants to go. With is his middle name, Sports his last name.
At the Sport Report, we pride ourselves on
neutral,
down the middle coverage
with an analytical spin.
We remove the bias so you can think about a team without any outside opinion.
No crazy points for attention.
No power rankings.
No opinions.
Just sports.
We're going to throw out the bias and throw in some facts. We're out to change the game. So without further ado, here we go. Hit it, Blaze.
This is the Sport Report.
Hey everybody, I'm Chandler With Sports, and this is the Sport Report. We're actually going to start with Major League Baseball because now we have our matchup in the World Series. In the NLCS, the Philadelphia Phillies defeat the San Diego Padres in 5 games. The Phillies will be headed to their first World Series since 2009, but they will not be playing the Yankees as they did then. They'll be playing the Houston Astros. How did both teams get there? Well, in Game 4 of the NLCS, the Phillies led 2-1, and both pitchers, one for the Padres, Mike Clevenger, the other for the Phillies, Bailey Falter, got pulled in the first inning. It's the first time since the 1932 World Series that both starting pitchers were pulled in the first inning of a Major League Baseball postseason game. That happened between the Yankees and the Cubs in 32 when Johnny Allen and Guy Bush were both pulled in the first inning. The Phillies end up taking the series in 5 games. In the American League, the New York Yankees bats fell silent. Now, there might be a chance that the Houston Astros were using trash cans again, or that, Jose Altuve is wearing a wire under his shirt. I guess we'll never know unless Rob Manfred wants to give more immunity to the Astros. No, we're not bitter. We're just, we're calling out people for their hypocrisies. The Yankees end up falling in 4 games. They get swept. It's the second time in a decade that the Yankees have been swept in a best-of-7 series. It happened in 2012 against the Tigers in the ALCS as well. Now, this week's trivia question. The Astros are undefeated in the Divisional Series and the Championship Series. Who are the other 2 teams to have accomplished this feat? Hint, both of those teams ended up losing in the World Series. To answer last week's trivia question before we move on to the NFL, the Jets became the second team in the Super Bowl era to have a winning record through 6 games, despite being an underdog in all 6 games, according to ESPN Stats and Information Research. The answer here was the 2001 Cleveland Browns. Yeah, interesting, huh? All right, that covers Major League Baseball. We answered that last week's trivia question. Now, a look ahead to the NFL. This week's Sport Report NFL correspondent Colby Volrath is out on assignment, so I'll be running you through the NFL. QBs wearing number 12 had a bad week. It was National Tight End Day, and the Pats and Colts make some interesting QB decisions. This is around the NFL.
Leon left.
Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. How in the world?
Oh my goodness.
Around the NFL.
On Thursday Night Football, Arizona Cardinals 42, New Orleans Saints 34. Saints quarterback Andy Dalton threw for 361 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also becomes the first quarterback in NFL history to throw for 30 completions, 4 touchdowns, but have 2 pick sixes in the same game. Eno Benjamin for the Cardinals did great on the ground, 92 yards and a touchdown, filling in for James Conner. Chris Olave had 7 receptions for 106 yards for the Saints. Cardinals win by 8, improved to 3-4 on the season. Moving ahead to the Sunday slate, the Dallas Cowboys 24, Detroit Lions 6. Cowboys improved to 5-2. The Lions are now 1-5. Tony Pollard had 83 yards rushing on the ground. He filled in for starting running back Ezekiel Elliott. When Elliott got injured with a knee contusion, he should be good to go for Week 8. He continued to play, but Pollard became the main back as the game was almost out of hand. Dak Prescott returned for the Cowboys, and in his return, he was 19-25 for 207 yards with a late touchdown to their backup tight end, Peyton Hendershot. Washington Commanders, or the Commandskins as we've termed it, 23. Green Bay Packers 21. Taylor Heineke is in for Carson Wentz for the Commandskins, and he threw for 201 yards and 2 touchdowns. Brian Robinson Jr. had 73 yards on the ground For Washington, and Terry McLaurin led them through the air with 5 receptions and 73 yards and a touchdown. Why don't we mention any of the Green Bay stats? Well, here's one for you. Packers had 0. They were 0 for 6 on third down in the game, and that's the fewest third down conversions for them in a game since Week 6 in 1999 against the defending Super Bowl champion Broncos that year. Back to Green Bay, they've got some issues. There are definitely some struggles. Packers have lost 3 in a row. They're 3-4 now, and so are the Washington Commanders. Cincinnati Bengals 35, Atlanta Falcons 17. Joe Burrow went for 481 yards and 3 touchdowns. Goodness gracious, he had a fantastic day. Joe Mixon had 58 yards and a touchdown on the ground for Cincinnati. As for Atlanta, well, they had 124 yards from Marcus Mariota. He only passed the ball 13 times during the game. Cincinnati's 4-3 on the season. The Falcons fall to 3-4. Another stat to note, the Cincinnati Bengals still haven't allowed a second-half touchdown this season. We are through 7 weeks of this 18-week season. That's pretty incredible. Tennessee Titans 19, Indianapolis Colts 10. The Colts have played 5 divisional games in their first 7 games. They're 3-1 after those 7 games, but in the division they are 1-4. The Titans improved to 4-2 on the season, fresh off their bye week. Matt Ryan will be replaced by former Texas quarterback Sam Ehlinger, who will now start for the Indianapolis Colts with Nick Foles as the backup quarterback. Coach Frank Reich says that even though Ryan has a separated shoulder, that's not the reason for the change. A younger quarterback who can get experience, and not to mention that Matt Ryan has 11 fumbles, 3 of them lost, and 9 interceptions for the year through 7 games. Here's a stunner in Carolina. Carolina Panthers 21, Tampa Bay Buccaneers 3. Well, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers are 3-4. Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers are 3-4. Both QBs were number 12. Something is really wrong, or this is just the NFL. Panthers improved to 2-5 a week after trading away their star running back Christian McCaffrey to the 49ers, and they didn't even get a first-round draft pick in return. They got a second, third, and fourth-round draft pick in this year's draft and a fifth-round draft pick in next year's draft. While Tom Brady threw for 290 yards for the Buccaneers, it wasn't enough, as the Panthers were led by a dynamic ground game by Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard, who combined for 181 yards on the ground. Backup quarterback P.J. Walker threw to star wide receiver DJ Moore, and he got Moore his first touchdown of the season. New York Giants 23, Jacksonville Jaguars 17. The Jags fall to 2-5 on the season. They were actually favored in this game by 3 points, which is usually how many points a home team gets when the odds makers are making the odds. So in essence, this was a pick'em. The Giants improved to 6-1 on the year. They become the 3rd team in NFL history with 6 wins in their first 7 games by 8 points or fewer, by 1 score or fewer. The other 2 teams, the 2000 Vikings and the 1988 Saints. Both teams had at least 10 wins during those seasons. Baltimore Ravens 23, Cleveland Browns 20. The Ravens are 4-3 on the year, and the Browns fall to 2-5. Browns' Nick Chubb, their starting running back, had 91 yards and a touchdown on the ground. That man can move through an offensive line like a knife through hot butter. For the Ravens, they improved to 24-5 versus the Cleveland Browns, their AFC North divisional rival, under their head coach, John Harbaugh. Seattle Seahawks 37, San Diego or Los Angeles Chargers 23. Justin Herbert threw for 293 yards and 2 touchdowns for the Chargers. Kenneth Walker, the great Kenneth Walker from Michigan State. Seattle running back had 168 yards and 2 touchdowns. As the Seattle Seahawks are now in charge, they are the top team in the NFC West at 4-3. That is a sentence nobody expected to see, considering their quarterback they traded away, their franchise quarterback, Russell Wilson, is now the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos, who lose to the New York Jets 16-9. The Broncos are now 2-5, and Wilson didn't even play in this game. He had a hamstring injury, hopes to be healthy enough for the London game against the Jags this upcoming week. The Jets improved to 5-2 for the first time since 2010 when they made the AFC title game under former head coach Rex Ryan. Jets lose star rookie running back, Breece Hall to an ACL injury for the season. He also tore his meniscus. Made a trade for James Robinson to help bolster their backfield. They also have Michael Carter back there to help as a platoon system for the running backs for the Jets. Oakland or Las Vegas Raiders 38, Houston Texans 20. The Raiders are 2-4. Texans fall to 1-4-1 on the season. Their quarterback Davis Mills had 302 yards and 2 touchdowns passing. while Vegas running back Josh Jacobs had 143 yards and not one, not two, but three rushing touchdowns. Davante Adams had 8 receptions for 95 yards for the Las Vegas Raiders. In the last game of the afternoon slate on Sunday, Kansas City Chiefs 44, San Francisco 49ers 23. The Chiefs improved to 5-2. The Niners fall to 3-4 in a rematch of the Super Bowl from 2 seasons ago. Patty Mahomes had 423 yards and 3 touchdowns for the Chiefs, while Juju Smith-Schuster had 124 receiving yards on 7 receptions and caught a touchdown for Kansas City as well. Jeff Wilson and Christian McCaffrey both share the running back duties for the Niners. They combined for 92 yards on 15 carries, which comes out to an average of just over 6 yards a carry for both running backs. It was not enough. Niners lose by 3 touchdowns. On Sunday Night Football, Miami Dolphins 16, Pittsburgh Steelers 10. The Steelers made it interesting, but their quarterback Kenny Pickett threw three interceptions for the Steelers. They fall to 2-5. The Dolphins got Tua Tagovailoa back, 261 yards and a touchdown. Passing, they improved to 4-3 and snap a 3-game skid. All 3 of those losses came after we mentioned them as a trivia answer just a few weeks ago, so we're glad to see them back in the win column. Raheem Mostert had 79 yards on the ground for the Dolphins. To Monday Night Football, well, Chicago Bears 33, New England Patriots 14, yeah, not the other way around. In a mid-October game at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts, where it was misty and raining and windy, the traditional northeastern October evening, Patriots lose by 19. They traded out their starting quarterback Mac Jones after 3 drives. Bailey, Irish shot of espresso Zappi, threw for 185 yards and a touchdown for New England, but he also had a couple of interceptions in the game. New England's got some questions to answer on defense. They cannot handle a mobile quarterback, as proven by Bears quarterback Justin Fields and Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson a few weeks ago. Teams that were on bye this week include the Buffalo Bills, the LA Rams, the Minnesota Vikings, and the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. Looking ahead to Week 8, it's an interesting slate. Baltimore Ravens at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Thursday Night Football. On Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern on ESPN+, in the London game, the Denver Broncos are at the Jacksonville Jaguars. In the afternoon slate, the Chicago Bears travel to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. Las Vegas Raiders are at the New Orleans Saints. New England Patriots at the New York Jets. And then Carolina Panthers are at the Atlanta Falcons. Miami Dolphins at the Detroit Lions. Arizona Cardinals and the Minnesota Vikings go head-to-head in Minneapolis. Pittsburgh Steelers and the Philadelphia Eagles battle it out in the Battle of the Keystone State at 1 p.m. Eastern. Tennessee Titans and Houston Texans in an AFC South battle. Washington Commandskins and the Indianapolis Colts. And then in an NFC West battle, San Francisco 49ers and the Los Angeles Rams. Both teams trying to keep up with the Seattle Seahawks, who will actually take on the 6-1 New York Giants in Seattle in the afternoon slate. The Sunday night game is the Green Bay Packers at the Buffalo Bills. And then on Monday night, the Cincinnati Bengals take on the Cleveland Browns in an AFC North battle. We flipped it around this week. So moving from the pros back to the college ranks. This is college football.
All the band is out on the field.
Flutie flush, throws it down. Caught by Boston College. I don't believe it.
Caught, touchdown! Caught by Westbrook for a touchdown. Incredible.
College football update.
College football the last couple of weeks has been interesting, to say the least. Some news and notes from the previous week. Clemson Tigers 27, Syracuse Orange 21. Garrett Schrader, the backup quarterback for the Syracuse Orange, had 167 yards and a touchdown for Syracuse. In Death Valley, Clemson pulled their starting quarterback DJ Uiagalelei from the game. He had 138 yards passing, but he also had 2 interceptions. He will be their starting quarterback going forward. They just need to make a QB change to, get some energy back into the offense. Clemson holds on by 6. Alabama 30, Mississippi State 6. The 6th-ranked Crimson Tide are now 9-0 under Nick Saban, coming off a loss in their previous game. They lost a couple weeks ago to the Tennessee Volunteers, who have an interesting matchup against Kentucky this upcoming week. Alabama continues their winning run against Mississippi State. Mississippi State Bulldogs finally scored a touchdown in Tuscaloosa for the first time since 2014. That came on the final play of the game. LSU 45, 7th-ranked Ole Miss 20. The Rebels of Ole Miss were held scoreless in the second half. LSU outscored the Rebels 28-3 after they trailed 17-3 early in the game. Jaden Daniels for the Tigers, their quarterback, had 121 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Pretty incredible stuff. And another ranked battle, TCU Horned Frogs 38, Kansas State 28. The 17th ranked Kansas State Wildcats led 28-10 before the Horned Frogs of TCU outscored them 28-0 to win by 10. Max Duggan for the Horned Frogs had 280 yards and 3 touchdowns. Kendre Miller, 153 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground for TCU as well. And a top 10 battle in the Pac-12. It's a sentence we don't get to say too often on this program. Number 10, Oregon 45. Number 9, UCLA 30. The Bruins of UCLA are now 6-1. The Ducks of Oregon are now 6-1. Both got here in very different ways. UCLA head coach Chip Kelly used to be the head coach at Oregon. Well, his former team gave his current team their first loss of the season. Meanwhile, Oregon now leads the Pac-12, their only loss coming to number 1 Georgia in a blowout loss during week 1. Bo Nix is now looking like the Bo Nix of old for the Ducks. 283 yards and 5 touchdowns. It really seems like the weight has been lifted off his shoulders. Zach Charbonnet had 151 yards on the ground for the Bruins. Oregon is now 9-1 after Taylor Swift releases an album. Yes, that is an actual stat. 23rd straight win at home for the Ducks. And Lee Corso, the guy on College Game Day, the former coach who puts headgear on to make his selections, is still undefeated this season. He's 9-0. He's also 14-1 in his last 15 picks. Number 11, Oklahoma State 41. Number 20, Texas 34. The Cowboys are 6-1 on the season. Texas had a 2-touchdown lead late in the first half, but Oklahoma State comes from behind through their quarterback Spencer Sanders, who had 391 yards and 2 touchdowns for the Cowboys. Bijan Robinson, 140 yards and a touchdown for the Longhorns. Other news and notes from around college football. Number 16, Penn State obliterated Minnesota 45-17. The Golden Gophers have lost 3 in a row to Purdue, Illinois, and Penn State. They've got Rutgers this upcoming week. Number 21, Cincinnati ends up taking out an unranked SMU 29-27. The Mustangs of SMU made it interesting. They scored 13 fourth-quarter points, but it wasn't enough to come back and overtake the American Conference leader. Tulane is ranked for the first time since 1998. They're 7-1. They take down Memphis 38-28. Baylor 35-23 over Kansas in a Big 12 battle. Texas Tech 48, West Virginia 10. Both of these teams are inconsistent in their own unique ways. Texas Tech improves to 4-3 on the year. West Virginia 3-4. Wisconsin 35, Purdue 24. Colorado State gets their second win of the year. They win 17-13 over Hawaii. Boise State 19, Air Force 14 in a battle for the Mountain West supremacy. Boise State Broncos improve to 5-2. The Falcons of Air Force fall to 5-3. Louisville 24-10 over Pitt. Wyoming 28-14 over Utah State, and Washington 28-21 over Cal. This upcoming week does not feature a lot of ranked matchups. We will get 3 of them, though. Number 2, Ohio State travels to Happy Valley to take on number 13, Penn State. It's the 6th straight meeting between both teams when they're ranked. The Buckeyes have won the previous 5, but I would caution you, the Buckeyes have not played a current AP Top 25 team. They haven't played a team above 500. And they've got 2 wins against Arkansas State and Toledo and 4 wins versus teams at the bottom of the Big Ten plus Notre Dame. So look for Penn State to maybe pull the upset at home. It will not be a whiteout night. They had that against Minnesota this previous week, and they won by 4 touchdowns. You never know what could happen in Happy Valley. Number 19, Kentucky at number 3, Tennessee. The last time the Wildcats and Volunteers were ranked was in 1951. Now they get to play each other for the second time in their storied history. Number 9, Oklahoma State travels to Manhattan, Kansas for number 22, Kansas State. It's the second meeting out of 65 matchups with both of these teams ranked. First was in 2011. The Cowboys won a thriller 52-45. Other matchups this week include number 7, TCU traveling to Morgantown to take on the West Virginia Mountaineers. Notre Dame heads up to the Carrier Dome in upstate New York to take on Syracuse. Arkansas against Auburn. Oklahoma, Iowa State. Those in the early window at a noon kickoff as well. Miami against Virginia at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Rutgers, Minnesota, 2:30 p.m. Eastern on the Big Ten Network. Florida travels to Georgia, the SEC game on CBS at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Also at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 8, Oregon against Cal on Fox Sports 1. Wake Forest travels to Louisville. Ooh, that could be a little bit interesting. Malik Cunningham is healthy again for the Cards. Number 20, Cincinnati travels to UCF in a battle of the top two American teams. That's at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. We mentioned just a moment ago Oklahoma State, Kansas State, 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Fox. Kentucky, Tennessee, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. USC and Arizona will be on Pac-12 Network at 7 p.m. Colorado State, Boise State, same time, Fox Sports 1. Colorado takes on Arizona State in their homecoming game, a battle between a 1-6 Buffalo team and the 2-5 Sun Devil team, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPNU. Sport Report will be in Boulder for Buffaloes versus Sun Devils. That'll be an interesting matchup between two Pac-12 teams. Baylor is at Texas Tech, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. Pitt travels to North Carolina a half an hour later on the ACC network. Stanford and UCLA in the Pac-12 After Dark, 10:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. San Diego State, Fresno State, Fox Sports 1 at the same time. And in the late game, Wyoming travels to Hawaii. They will not be going for a vacation. They will be going for some football. That covers week number 8 and looks ahead to week number 9 for college football. In the NHL, Phil Kessel, well, his Ironman streak has reached 990 games. Keith Yandel had it at 989 when he broke it last season. Well, Kessel's broken it this season. He played for the Golden Knights last night versus the San Jose Sharks. And in the NBA, Jalen Suggs, who's now out with an injury, and Paolo Banchero became the first teammates to 35 points or more in an NBA season opener since Jerry West and Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain in 1969 for the Lakers. Speaking of Lakers, they can't hit threes. And the Portland Trailblazers are the only undefeated team after 4 games this season. In NASCAR, Kyle Larson wins the race at Homestead, Miami. He will qualify for the ownership playoffs, but not the regular playoffs. The ownership playoffs determine the distribution of money after the season. Meanwhile, the driver playoffs give the actual championship to the driver. The ownership playoffs is determined by car number. Joey Logano has qualified for the next round. He'll be followed by Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, and William Byron. Denny Hamlin is 5 points out of the 4th spot. You need to be in 4th after this upcoming week's race in Martinsville, qualify for the final race in Phoenix. We'll have our Sport Report NASCAR correspondent Andy Jones on to recap NASCAR's races at Martinsville and the championship race at Phoenix the week after. And one last news and notes for this week's Sport Report. Jim Nantz, famous commentator. This is his 40-year anniversary as a member of the Houston Cougars golf team. He went to Houston, started his commentary career there, played Augusta during his first year in '83. That's a whole other story we're not even going to get into, but he tells it really well. Jim Nantz is going to be retiring from March Madness, calling the games during March Madness. He wants to be able to spend more time with his family. He'll be able to go to the games. He'll still do the trophy presentation after the championship game, but he wants to spend more time with his kids. We applaud it. That's amazing for Jim Nantz. He's called every Final Four and national championship since 1991 when Brett Musburger was let go at CBS when they didn't renew his contract. So congrats to Jim Nantz. He'll still do the NFL games with Tony Romo. He'll still lead the Masters coverage. He's like Vern Lundquist. He will not leave Augusta. He better not leave Augusta. We'll miss Jim Nantz on our March Madness coverage. Ian Eagle will succeed him. Ian Eagle's been at CBS since 1998. He's covered the New York, New Jersey, Brooklyn, whatever you want to call him. He's covered the Nets since 1995. Whether he'll continue to work with Bill Raftery, his longtime Nets color commentator, who's currently the Final Four national championship commentator with Nantz, that remains to be seen. We'll see if Grant Hill continues on the coverage. Hill and Eagle called a few games during the pandemic during the tournament. They did really well together, so we'll see what happens at CBS going forward.
For now, I'm Chandler.
So let it be written, so let it be done.
Thanks for tuning into the Sport Report today. We'll be back on our next episode with the latest in sports. Right now, we're still working on a website, but if you want to follow us on social media, we are at SR_CWS on Instagram and Twitter. You can also find our podcast on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, you name it. We're on almost every podcast platform.
This podcast is copyrighted by the Sport Report for viewers to understand sports from a news reporting basis. Any other use of this podcast, Sport Report logos, or anything associated with this podcast without the express written consent of Chandler With Sports is strictly prohibited.